Oh, yeah. Whew, just needed my morning coffee there. So today, I'm going to show you how I made this little fish here out of some scrap wood. Now, I know you're probably wondering, why on earth would you want to know how to make this? Well, these are very specific scrap wood pieces, and those are scrap pieces that come from making Texas stars. And if you've watched... Oh my god. A few moments earlier. Yummy. Nasty. Ugh, remind me never to eat stale hash brown and old coffee before I start filming. Holy crow. This was quite the adventure. I actually almost gave up on this several times. And it was actually my wife that encouraged me to keep going because I started and I should finish what I started. But I was getting pretty discouraged because before I put on this cool, like, funky decoration on here, it looked like this. That's,
It looks pretty messed up and scary. And, yeah, I just didn't want to work on this anymore. Oh, man, I think I'm losing my mind today.
I don't know why this is so funny. I was up late last night. Maybe that's why. I was up till about 5 in the morning setting up my Pinterest account. All right, where was I? So these Texas stars, I usually end up getting a bunch of scrap pieces of wood that look something like this. One thing you could do with these scraps is actually make a second smaller star, but sometimes I don't have enough pieces. For example, with this star, I was only left with 5 of these pieces. I actually need 10 pieces to make a smaller star. And if you want to see how I made that star and exactly how I got these scraps, which are very specific to making this fish, I will leave a link in the description so you can see exactly how I got these. Now, anyone in their right mind would never try to make a fish like this because cutting all these pieces just wouldn't be worth the time. But since they were already cut for making the Texas star, it made sense to try to use them as is. So challenge number 1 was to try to make this fish without having to cut any of the scrap pieces. And I actually almost succeeded at that. I did end up having to cut one of the pieces, but before that, I spent a concerning amount of time trying to figure this out, and I got some pretty messed up looking fish. But near the end, I came up with something that I felt was pretty close. I did have to cut this one piece into 2 pieces, and this basically ended up being the jaw and one of the lower fins there. So I thought that was pretty good. If I don't have to cut anything, I actually can save a lot of time, and it kind of seems a little bit more worth it. And once I had a shape that I thought might work, it was time to glue everything together. Now I started by gluing it together with wood glue and holding it together with masking tape until it dried. And then I came along afterwards and reinforced all the joints with dowels. In this case, I'm using barbecue skewers. I basically just drill a hole through the 2 connecting pieces, fill it with some glue, and tap a barbecue skewer in there. Let the glue dry and then cut the excess with a pull saw. For the smaller fins and the tail, I did the same thing, tacked it together with wood glue, but to reinforce these ones with dowels, I used this little jig here, kind of like a pocket hole jig, but for dowel joinery, and this was to help me insert the dowels from the back of the fish to give me a cleaner finish overall. And in the end, you're left with some really strong joints that won't come apart. And now comes the fun part. Decorating the fish however you'd like. I started by torching it just to give the wood a little bit more character, and then the thing that I found most useful for decorating this thing was beer cans and pop cans. I basically cut them open, gave some of the pieces a little bit more texture by hammering it against a 2x4, and the eye was made out of the bottom of the can, and I just stacked some washers inside of a bottle cap, and then used an upholstery tack as the so-called pupil. Now the tack wasn't quite long enough to hold the eye into place securely, so I did add a little bit of 5-minute epoxy to the back of this, and that worked out great. Another thing that was really helpful in making this fish was rubber cement or contact cement. This worked really well for gluing aluminum to aluminum and then the aluminum to wood. I also used these little tacks, these little black tacks. These are actually carpet tacks, and you can get a little container of these for pretty cheap at hardware stores. And I thought it was a nice touch. I like that they're black and they're kind of rustic looking. And by the way, when it came to making that eye, bigger was better. Those beady little eyes were not good for this fish.
It looks pretty messed up and scary.
And this project also taught me a little bit about less is more. It was quite easy to get carried away with the decoration, and eventually I had to just kind of start over and take everything off because it was looking too cluttered. The more simple I kept it, the better it looked. So there you go, guys. That's pretty much it. What do you think? I haven't mounted it to this back piece yet. I actually just placed it here to take some thumbnail photos. But once I put it on there, I was kind of thinking if I were to permanently mount that on there and put that on the wall, I think that would look actually pretty cool. All right, so I guess that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button and stay tuned for more. See you next time.